The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
From the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, this is Legends. I'm Jason Bryant. Prepare for a journey through wrestling's past, present, and future, as we'll hear the great stories of wrestling and success from the true legends of the sport here on Hall of Fame Legends. Raised in the wrestling hotbed of Waterloo, Iowa, Chuck Yagla turned a talent for wrestling into a lifelong passion. He began his wrestling journey at Waterloo's Columbus High School, where he served as a senior team captain and was runner-up at the 1972 Class 3A state tournament. At the University of Iowa, Yagla won the NCAA championship at 150 pounds in 1975 as a junior. His win came via a 4-4-1-1 referee split decision over future three-time NCAA champion and world champion Lee Kemp. He repeated the feat in 1976, where he was also named the Outstanding Wrestler of the NCAA tournament. Wrestling in international competition from 1972 to 1980, Yagla won freestyle events around the world. He was the United States Wrestling Federation Junior National Champion in 1972 and Grand Champion in 1975. In addition, he won a USWF National Greco-Roman title in 1978. He was the U.S. Olympic Freestyle Alternate in 1976 and earned a spot on the 1980 Olympic team, but he was denied the opportunity to compete when the U.S. boycotted the Moscow Games. Yagla was also a runner-up at the 1979 Tbilisi tournament in the Soviet Union, regarded as one of the toughest international events outside of the Olympics, and he also won gold and silver medals in the World Cup. Following his wrestling career, Yagla served as an assistant wrestling coach at the University of Iowa from 1977 to 1982 before he turned his attention to officiating. He spent 24 years as an NCAA wrestling official, gaining respect of coaches and competitors nationwide. From 1996 to 2007, he was a fixture at the NCAA Division I Championships and was selected to referee finals matches 5 times. He officiated 6 NCAA Division II championships and in 2009 was honored by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame as a meritorious official. For excelling in every aspect of wrestling during his incredible career, Chuck Yagla is honored as a distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Class of 2017. 2017 distinguished member Chuck Yagla. This is not your first rodeo here with the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. You went in previously for lifetime service to officials. Now you're one of the rare people that are going to be enshrined here twice. Which one are you going to be most proud of, your wrestling career or your officiating career?
Well, it's a great honor to be inducted no matter what category, but I have to say that being recognized as a wrestler is much more important and exciting to me. I mean, I was very proud of my officiating career, but the wrestling accolades are what I, think most highly of.
When did you first discover the sport of wrestling?
I started wrestling in 5th grade. Knew nothing about it before that to my knowledge. In the school I went to, a parochial school, I had a brother 2 years older than me. We liked all sports. We played football, we played basketball, we played baseball, we played tennis, we played golf. Growing up in a family I was youngest of 4 boys, and the school started a wrestling program when I was in 5th grade and my brother was in 7th grade. So we both said, well, let's try wrestling. And that's when I very first discovered it, and then became aware. Dan Gable was 8 years older than me, became aware of him. He was going through his 3 state championship titles at West Waterloo High School. And so just fell in love with it.
And you're a Waterloo native.
Yes, Waterloo native. Grew up, born and raised there, and live there now. Moved back after spending 10 years in Iowa City. So yeah, it's a great wrestling community. So it was around me, but really didn't come aware of it until I was in 5th grade.
So this kind of plays to the misconception that when you're born in the state of Iowa, you've got a singlet on. Whether what color it is irrelevant, but wrestling still has to be discovered in a wrestling state like Iowa.
Oh yeah, even in Iowa, yeah, it still has to be discovered. Not everybody, grows up wanting to be a wrestler in the state of Iowa. I wish more did. They would make the sport more.
They don't.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. It would make the sport more popular. It's like probably most states, it's football and basketball are the ones everybody's aware of. But of course, we're very popular in Iowa. And when you travel, it's very popular. People say, "Oh, you're from Iowa." "Oh, yeah, the wrestlers." Yeah.
Usually the first thing they say, "Oh, wrestling, Iowa, Dan Gable."
Yes, yes, I hear Dan Gable a lot when I'm traveling. If you're from Iowa and they hear the word wrestling, they go, "Oh, I know Dan Gable," or "I wrestled Dan Gable," or of course a lot of people exaggerate, or none of them say I beat Dan Gable because that'd be a hard, tough thing to say.
You'd probably know who they were.
Yes, I would know. I would if they beat Dan Gable, I would know who they were. That's correct.
When you started in fifth grade, what do you remember about your first match?
Well, I don't really remember.
Or have you blocked out that memory?
I don't remember my first match because when I was in this, again, I said it was a parochial school, so we did not have an organized league or anything. There was one other parochial school that had a wrestling team. So we didn't actually have any tournaments. We didn't go to any tournaments. So all through junior high, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I probably had a total of 4 or 5 matches, I'm guessing, against the other parochial school. And so I don't really remember if I won or I lost. I mean, I don't think I lost, but it was not something that, I really kept track of or was aware of. And then obviously in high school, started having competitive matches. But in junior high, I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I had a great junior high coach, Bob Bozen. He actually wrestled for Bob Siddons at West High School, and he was on Bob Siddons' first state championship team at West High back in the early 1950s. And then he started the program at my school. So he was a great coach as far as just the basics. So, he was a big part, I think, of me, falling in love with wrestling.
When did you realize that you had become a wrestler?
Oh, I think by the time I got to high school, I decided not to go out for any other sports in high school. My brother and I both decided, wrestling was going to be our sport. So we both just concentrated on wrestling. So, when I started high school, I thought, I decided that's going to be my sport. And so that's pretty much what I spent my time trying to become a better wrestler.
When did you really realize that you're starting to become successful? What was success for you? And when did you realize that you had attained kind of that level that you were almost expecting to get?
Oh, I think my junior year in high school is when I first realized, that I was going to be successful and could be successful. My sophomore year, I did not get out of the second. In Iowa, they have a sectionals district and state. I did not get out of the sectionals, so I didn't get to go to districts. So, and I had like 11-9 record. I had a winning record, but not very impressive. But then my junior year, I started having a lot of success, and I won the sectionals. And I got upset in the districts by a guy that I should not have lost to, and then the guy I beat in sectionals won the sectionals and went on and got third in state. So at that moment, I realized, I beat this guy a week before and he got third in state. So that means I probably could be second in state. So, it started putting the pieces together and realizing, okay, this is something I could be good at.
One point that's brought up is that being a distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, they're not looking at your high school credentials very much, because in your case, you never won a high school state title. Going into your senior year, you just said that, I can be at least second in the state. Talk about your senior year.
Yeah, my senior year, of course, my goal then was to be a state champion. I was very disappointed, made me really work hard over the summer, not even getting to go to state, as a junior. So my goal was to be undefeated and be a state champion. Well, my senior year, then I come down to the sectionals, and again, it's West Waterloo where Coach Siddons was at. They had a wrestler that he was very good. I was very good. I had not competed against him during the year. They shuffled their lineup. So this was the first time we met. And he beat me in the finals of sectionals. And then we went to districts. He beat me in the finals of districts. And then we went to state, and he beat me in the finals of state. Each match I got closer, but I was never able to beat him. So, I got.
Who was it?
His name was Bruce Wilson, and we're friends now. Ironically, he has a son, Caleb, is a junior in high school now. That's at a local school in Denver, Iowa, that I've been working with a little bit as a wrestler. Bruce asked me, if I'd work with him. So things have come full circle with Bruce and I. I didn't think I could ever be friends with him, but it's just one of those things where at that time he was better than me. But again, getting second in state, was a huge disappointment. But I think it in the long run, it helped me, motivate me, to keep working harder and go for that success in college.
You had said when you started wrestling that there was a guy named Gable who was in town, about 8 years older than you. When you're getting to the end of your high school career, it's a guy named Gable. He's still pretty good at that time. What was ultimately the decision that led you to the University of Iowa? Where else were you considering? I mean, were you getting offers other places?
No, like I said, not winning state, I wasn't heavily recruited. When I was a senior, it was 1972. It was announced Gary Kurlemeyer would be the head coach of the University of Iowa. So So when I'm going to be a freshman, if I go there, it's going to be his first year as head coach. And then he also announced that Dan Gable was going to be assistant coach. Of course, I idolized Coach Gable growing up in Waterloo. And this was the Olympic year. This is when he had not yet won the Olympics, but, he was going to be competing in the Olympics. And I had my older brother, Steve, that was 2 years older than me. He was on the wrestling team at the University of Iowa. I had some injuries, so he never really had the success, that he could have had. But with him being there, and I had another older brother that was going to start his first year of law school at the University of Iowa. So I was being recruited by Kurtelmeyer to go to Iowa, and I was also being recruited by the University of Northern Iowa. Basically, those were the two schools that showed me interest, and neither one offered me, an athletic scholarship. I had good grades, so I was offered an academic scholarship at the University of Iowa for tuition, and with the understanding that if I went there and was successful, I could eventually earn an athletic scholarship. So, with Gable being there, with my brothers being there, it really was an easy decisision for me to decide to go to the University of Iowa. And obviously, it turned out to be a great decision for me.
So in that era, you're not the first and you're definitely not going to be the last to talk about, when you didn't win a state championship, your recruiting options were limited. And then you go to a program which was a good program, wasn't the Power Iowa that we knew yet. It was on the way to becoming that. What were your goals when you stepped foot in Iowa City and said, I'm going to be on the wrestling team here?
My goal was to, there weren't lofty goals. I don't think at the time my goal was to make the varsity. Basically that as a freshman, I wanted to be the starting varsity guy. And there were guys that they recruited that were around my weight that I knew got athletic scholarships and I didn't, from other states. So I think that gave me a little extra incentive, to beat those guys out and get the starting spot at the University of Iowa as a freshman. So basically that was my goal as a freshman. And I did that. I achieved that. Hindsight, I should have had a little higher goal. I probably should have had a goal to be an All-American or something like that. But of course you learn from those types of things. So, but I basically achieved my goal. I did earn a starting spot as a freshman. And then after the first semester, they gave me a full athletic scholarship. Coach Kurtelmeyer called me in his office and said, "We like what we see and we want to offer you a full athletic scholarship, for the rest of your career." Of course, it was a great Christmas present and I gladly accepted it.
You go 4-1-1 your last 3 years at Iowa. Why did the proverbial flip? The switch flip.
I have to give credit to Coach Gable for the flip switch. I had not worked out nearly as hard as I was aware you could work out for wrestling.
Compared to Coach Gable, nobody can.
Yeah, nobody can. But I was amazed at how much he put into it, how much work, and that got me motivated. And that got me working out twice a day. Before that, I didn't work out twice a day for wrestling. That was new to me. So started lifting weights all the time, and running and other than just working on technique and going to wrestling practice. So by the time I was a sophomore, I felt like a lot of my matches, I won because I was in better shape than everybody. And that was kind of the Gable philosophy back then. I mean, obviously we were good at other things too, but the conditioning, became a huge factor. I think we were because of Gable's influence, the go, run, work your butt off, beat guys out because you're in better shape, really made a huge difference. I mean, there were so many guys I think I beat in the third period because of the conditioning factor.
1975. You win your first NCAA wrestling championship. You win an NCAA championship. You had 0 high school state championships. What do you remember most about that moment? And did you have an opportunity to reflect and be like, wait, I just did something I couldn't even do in high school?
That moment, I don't think I thought about high school, but, I went in the national tournament as a junior, and we won as a team that year for the first time. So it was just, looking back, yeah, it was so exciting. I don't think, we didn't realize what we were starting, what we were going to become at the University of Iowa. So it was a great time. And, I beat Lee Kemp in the finals my junior year. Nobody really knew at the time how good he would become. I mean, obviously he was very good. I beat him on a split referee's decision. And it turns out that was his only loss in the NCAA tournament. He won the next 3 years. So, I prevented him from being the first 4-time national champion. So, that's a big part of history too. So, it was all, really great reflections. And I had a teammate, Dan Holm, that was the weight above me, and we competed against each other a lot in the practice room. And He won a national championship. So he and I, being close in weight, he was a senior, I was a junior. We were co-captains. We both were national champions. I mean, it was just, it was really, really cool at the time.
You look in, and you mentioned Lee Kemp, who is another distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it's funny how when you can look at things in hindsight, and even through the pages of history for those who weren't even alive when that happened, and you see that you guys are going to be eternally linked no matter what. How does that make you feel to be tied with such another fantastic athletic wrestling god, for lack of a better term?
Oh, yeah. I'm very proud of that, too. I mean, he and I...
And you beat him.
I beat him, yes. I beat him 3 times that year, which I think people realize. I beat him in the finals of nationals, but I don't think a lot of people realized I beat him in the dual meet that year. I beat him in the finals of the Big Ten tournament. He did beat me the first time we wrestled. We wrestled in the finals of the Northern Open when he was a freshman. He beat me in overtime. And that opened my eyes up, made me work harder, made me realize, I wasn't as good as I thought I was, but then beating him in the finals of the Big Ten tournament and then beat him in the finals of nationals, and it was being linked to him is awesome because obviously he went on to win 3 world titles in freestyle. So, I mean, he's a great, great wrestler. At the time I didn't like him. He was not a friend of mine. I couldn't stand him because he started beating me in freestyle, but now we're really good friends. I enjoy conversing with him and seeing him and he's a great human being and a great ambassador for wrestling. So it's to be linked to him, is very special.
Moving on to the second title. We'll come back to Lee Kemp here in a minute, but 1976, what was special about the second title?
Well, the second title, 2 things stand out to me. I beat a wrestler from Iowa State in the finals, Pete Gallia. And when he was a senior, I was a senior, I beat him 5-0. And when we were freshmen, we wrestled twice. We wrestled in the Midlands tournament. He beat me 11-1. And 2 weeks later, we wrestled in the dual meet and he pinned me. So at that time, we were both freshmen. It was one of those things I think I couldn't, Coach Gable didn't say anything, but I could kind of read his mind thinking, he looking at him and looking at me and say, boy, it's going to be a long 4 years with you competing against him if you don't get better. So, but obviously I got better and ended up, beating him in the finals and nationals was a great feeling. And then being named the outstanding wrestler, that was not something I really ever thought about or dreamed about. And just, it kind of came out of the blue. I mean, I had a great tournament. I pinned the first 3 guys. I won 19-3 in the semifinals. And then I won 5-0 in the finals. And then all of a sudden I'm named the outstanding wrestler. And I was the first Hawkeye wrestler ever to be named the outstanding wrestler. So again, at the time, it was a big deal, but looking back, I think it's even a bigger deal to me now. I think there's been 10 Hawkeyes now that have been the outstanding wrestler in the National Wrestling Tournament, but I was the first. So, that to me is special.
Now we move forward to probably one of the most painful moments probably of your career, and that centers around 1980. Going through that process as an athlete, and Lee was on the team with you, and there's several hammers. Mm-hmm. That was if you go back historically and you think, what if this could have been one of the greatest American wrestling teams ever performance-wise? Yeah. It may still be one of the greatest American wrestling teams ever assembled. Just go through 1980 in that situation. Yeah, 1980, it was, of course, everybody knows about the boycott, but to me, making the United States Olympic team, I consider that my biggest accomplishment. It's just so incredibly hard to make an Olympic team. I don't care what sport. And it's such an honor to represent the United States and to make that team, to win the tryouts and going to be the representative is my biggest accomplishment, my hugest honor. But then again, it's my hugest disappointment because we didn't get to compete. It was to have that taken away from you. It's just crazy. At the time, there were 450 athletes, all sports on the Summer Olympic team. And we were all denied the opportunity to compete in the Olympics, because of politics, which, should have never happened, but it did. So, it's just something that I still, probably more bitter about it today than I was back then. Because at the time, I think I thought maybe it would accomplish something, which obviously it didn't. Do you have conversations with your teammates from that era and still about what ifs? And, that's something all of you guys will carry with you is the fact that you didn't get to compete. What are the conversations like with those guys now? Oh, I can't say we really talk about it much. It's one of those things we all know, what happened, and for some of us, for a handful of us, that was our last opportunity. For me, I retired after that because I was married and I had a young daughter and, I decided not to give it up. So
But then I got the itch again to try out in 84 and then had a severe shoulder injury, dislocated my shoulder. So I was not able to compete again and try out in 84. So that was my last opportunity. And, there was a couple others that, never had the opportunity again. So, those ones, I hear and read things, what they say, but I can't honestly say that when we get together, we don't talk about, what could have been or what would have been. I mean, it's just one of those things we all realize that it was a huge disappointment and it is what it is, and move on with life.
One thing that in my time at USA Wrestling, I noticed in being around the sport is USA Wrestling does make sure you guys are not forgotten. Mm-hmm. There's the, anniversary teams and then, presentations and things like that. How does that make you feel to know that the governing body still goes, no, you're Olympians with us?
USA Wrestling does a great job of recognizing the 1980 team, which that's awesome. I mean, anytime they have something where we're recognized, it's a tremendous honor, and it's nice, very nice to be recognized. And I'm glad that they realize that, because I think it's kind of the forgotten team. Other sports, I think, probably don't get recognized, or I don't know, maybe they do. I don't think in other sports get recognized as much as the USA Wrestling team did from 1980. And the fact, like you said, I think we were going to have a tremendous team. I think we probably would have been one of the best teams ever. I think we probably would have got the most medals ever, but we'll never know.
Shifting gears back to Stillwater, Oklahoma. This is a town that, being as a Hawkeye, probably not necessarily the most comfortable place for you to be sitting all the time as a competitor and then as an official. What is it about the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and what it means to the sport of wrestling that's special to you?
Oh, like you said, Stillwater, Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yeah, as a Hawkeye, I don't feel real comfortable here. In fact, I didn't bring hardly any of my Hawkeye shirts. My wife said, "You're not going to wear all your Hawkeye gear down there, are you?" So, well, I guess maybe I should.
I just realized what color shirt I'm wearing. I'm wearing a maroon shirt.
Maroon,
here.
Yeah, okay. No, but yeah, I have a great respect for John Smith, great respect for Oklahoma State. I mean, obviously everybody knows their tradition. They have the most national championships ever. So for me, it's very special to come to Stillwater. As a wrestler, as a competitor, they weren't a big rival of ours when I was competing. That developed after Dan Gable became head coach. So our biggest rival in the state was University of Oklahoma when I was competing. So I never actually competed as a college wrestler in Gallagher Iba Arena, which I wish I could have, but we did not have dual meets that didn't start. The dual meets with Iowa and Oklahoma State didn't start till the late 70s after I had graduated and became an assistant coach. So I wished I could have competed here, but it's a great campus, great university, and I'm honored to be here, even though I may be a little bit out of place with a little bit of my Hawkeye gear.
As we look at your officiating career, which you've been enshrined here for as lifetime service to official, when you give up wrestling, which is hard for a lot of people to do, some people even hang on longer than they should, and then you say you get the itch, you come back in 84, then you get the itch again, and a lot of people have said that, oh, I can still be around wrestling, I can officiate. What was it about going from athlete to official that was fulfilling for you?
Well, for me, it was, I coached, like I said, for 5 years at Iowa and then decided to get out of coaching. I wanted to be the head coach at the University of Iowa, but I knew with Coach Gable there, it'd be a long wait till he retired. So I went back to my hometown, got into a career in banking and wanted to stay involved. And I always liked be knowledgeable about the rules. So I thought, well, I'll give officiating a try. And started doing college matches right away because I had the connection with the college coaches, and really enjoyed it. So I felt like I was giving back to the sport. At the same time, I could still stay involved. I'm down on the mat. I'm around the athletes. I'm around the coaches that I knew from when I was competing. So it was a great connection for me. And fortunately, I felt like I was good at it, and they kept hiring me, so I must have been okay. So it was fun to stay involved that way and give back to the sport. And actually, I did it for 24 years, so it was a great way for me to stay around the sport and give back to it and still be involved.
What is one thing you as an athlete, an elite level athlete that goes to official, that maybe you can tell the athletes of today, because we need more officials. We need more quality officials. There's good officials there now, but we need a bigger pool. We need the guys that guy, he's reffing out there. He was a national champion. Every time you're out there, oh yeah, Chuck, he was a national champion for Iowa. We don't really have a whole lot of that right now. What can you say to the wrestling public and the athletes coming off the mats who want to train and coach and hang on for the RTCs for a long time? Where's your enticement to get them into officiating?
Oh, I think I'd have to say, to entice them is you can really stay involved, and it can be fun for you. You're in the excitement. You still get the same thrills. I mean, it's not like competing, but when you're down on the mat there and you have to call a match and you have to call some points and it's a close match and you have to make those decisions, you still get the adrenaline rush like you're competing. So it's something you can really, really give back to the sport and still have a good competitive rush, and you should stay in good shape. So it helps keep you in shape too.
First NCAA championship finals match you got to call as an official. Compare the nerves before when you stepped on the mat in 1975.
Oh, for me as a wrestler, I never really felt like I got nervous. I don't know, I've really never really talked to too many other wrestlers, but much, much more nervous as an official than as a competitor. For whatever reason, as a competitor, I was always pretty calm, and I didn't get a lot of nerves and nervous before matches. But as an official, especially the finals and nationals, yeah, very, very nervous. No comparison. Way more nervous as an official.
Do you remember your first finals as an official?
Now that you say that, I can't actually remember my very first one. I did 5 finals matches. I'd have to actually do some research to remember exactly which was the first one.
What about the first time you had to call a Hawkeye at the NCAA championships?
I don't remember that. And that's kind of a funny thing. The NCAA championships, I think people thought that was not right for me to officiate Hawkeye. So I tried to avoid that as much as possible, but it's inevitable that I'm going to call sometimes. But
when they got all 10 there, it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, it's unavoidable. So that's not something, that I really remember my first one. I remember the biggest duel I ever had involving the Hawkeyes was with Oklahoma State in Carver Hawkeye Arena. That was on February 14th, 1998, Valentine's Day, and Oklahoma State beat Iowa in a very, very exciting, very close match. And that's probably the most exciting match for me as an official that I did as a dual meet.
How was the discussion like when Gable comes over to the table knowing that you wrestled for him? This is the guy that when you discovered wrestling, he was one of your early wrestling heroes, and now he's going to come over and be like, "Hey, Chuck, we got to talk about that call."
Coach Gable very, very, very seldom ever called me to the table, and I admire him for that. If he didn't think I made the right call or disagree with the call, he normally would not say anything or call me to the table. After the match, he might pull me aside and question me, but I think he respected me enough to not, try to make a spectacle of me in front of everybody else and make it look like he was influencing my decision. So I admired him for that.
What was the most impactful thing you learned from Dan Gable as a coach and Gary Kirtlemeyer?
Oh, Kirtlemeyer was very impactful as far as marketing the sport, obviously. And I really admired the fact that he realized that Gable should be the guy that's actually coaching us in the room. So he pretty much turned the reins over to Gable shortly after Gable's arrival. Gable, as a coach, the things that impacted me the most from him were the way he motivated me. He had a unique way of motivating you and could figure out what buttons to push to motivate you, and the hard work. I mean, the work ethic, those two things, were the biggest impact from him. His motivation and the strong work ethic and how much you can put in, and you'll realize how much you'll get out of it the more you put into it.
What do you want to be most remembered for in the sport of wrestling?
I probably want to be most remembered as somebody that loved the sport, somebody that gave back to the sport, somebody that was successful in the sport, and was a good representative of the sport. I feel like I've always represented the sport well. I've always represented the University of Iowa well. I think I represented USA well when I competed internationally. So I just want to remember as somebody that enjoyed it, loved it, and gave back to the sport.
With his friend Bob Buckley, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished member of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Chuck
Yagla. This is good stuff. First off, a well-known and sometimes little-known fact is that I went to the University of Iowa on academic scholarship for tuition because I was a real good student. In fact, I scored a 33 in the math portion of the ACT, and we were instructed to give a speech for 90 seconds. I'm going to try to follow that. One quick story that I want to make clear. There's been a lot of mention of Dave Schultz, and a lot of people know this story too. After being named the OW and winning my second national title, I entered the Great Plains tournament about 7 months later, and this senior in high school shows up from California and hangs around me, takes his picture with me. It turns out he's in the same weight as me. And of course, his name is Dave Schultz, and we meet in the finals, and he pins me. That's just an urban legend. I just want to get that straight. I want to thank my presenter, Bob Buckley. He's been a great mentor for me. I want to congratulate the other inductees. It's just an honor to go into this class. Class people. It's just, something like Andre said. Other people say you don't dream of this growing up. I just wanted to compete. I wanted to work hard and compete and have fun in wrestling. And again, it's a great honor to join this club. There's a lot of them sitting in this room. The John Smiths, the Dan Gables. A lot of great people in this exclusive club, and I'm finally in it. Thank my coaches, Bob Bozen, my junior high coach, who you saw. My high school coach was Mike Bach. And then, of course, Dan Gable and Gary Kirtlemeyer. People ask me, what changed from high school to college? What was the difference? You're a runner-up in state, and then you win 2 national titles. I will tell most people there's 2 words: Dan Gable. And that's Dan, not Stan, Gable, not able. I want to thank the Hawkeye Wrestling Club athletes that were there when I trained. I told people that's when the Hawkeye Wrestling Club got started, when Coach Gable came. And we had guys that just flocked to Iowa City because they wanted to be around Dan Gable. All these guys were post-college guys trying to make world teams, Olympic teams. So they were in our workout room to work out with. So by the time we got done with, the week's work of practice and we got to have a college meet on Saturday, it was relief because the college guys were much easier than these guys that we were competing against in the room. And one of those in particular I want to thank is Jay Robinson. And he came there as a grad assistant, and the whole entire 4 years I wrestled, he was a grad assistant at Iowa. And he was a big influence on me too, because I never wanted to work on technique. I just wanted to work out and wrestle and train, and he really got me working on technique a little bit. I want to thank my family. That's very important to me. It's been a huge part of me. My wife, Sarah, was introduced earlier when she escorted me. I'd like my brother, Steve, to stand up. He's been a huge part of my life. In closing, I'm particularly proud of one of the awards I received at the University of Iowa. My senior year, I was awarded the Nile Kinnick Scholarship. A few people that aren't Hawkeyes, I won't explain it, but you can Google Nile Kinnick and find out about him. But on that award, I have the trophy. I'm very proud of this trophy. It says, to the one who best typifies the ideals for which Nile Kinnick stood. I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Legends is presented by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and produced by the Matt Talk Podcast Network. If you want to hear more from wrestling's legends, contribute to this ongoing project at halloffamenelegends.org/contribute. One-time and small monthly donation options are available. We hope you've enjoyed this look into wrestling history. This has been Legends. I'm Jason Bryant.